All right, okay, so now we're going to look at the topic of practical responsible AI policies. And the next session is called Implementation of the Responsible Use of AI for the Benefit of Society. And of course, a topic that has become increasingly important today as well, the environment. So for this one here, we have Dr. Richard Benjamins, who's co-founder of the Observatory for the Social and Ethical Impact of AI, short ODISEA. And he's also the head of AI for Society and Environment and a chief responsible AI officer at Telefonica. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Richard Benjamins.
Good afternoon, everybody. So you're almost at the end of this summit. Yeah? For me, it's great to be back in my home country. I'm living in Spain, but I took the advantage of joining nice Dutch weather. Yeah? I will tell you something about responsible use of artificial intelligence, but also using it for good purposes. But let's start with a bit of context. Yeah? We all know there's a huge opportunity in artificial intelligence. Yeah? The business, that's what drives all of the people here, all of us, in that this has come so big, yeah? Different sectors, almost any sector, and many different use cases, yeah? This was already an estimation of a few years ago, and now with generative AI added to that, it's even more, yeah? 17 trillion, and then for estimation of the generative AI between 2.5 and 4.5 extra trillion, yeah? So that's even more than the GDP of the United Kingdom, yeah? A huge impact of this technology, though some also say that, hey, be careful, yeah, because we really don't know. We've shown great examples just in the talk before about what this technology already can do, but there are also some risks, yeah? Now, if you look at all those opportunities, if you are a company, a specific company, what can it do it for you, yeah? So I work in Telefonica, which is an international, multinational telecommunications company, and of course, like any company, we are using AI across our businesses, yeah? We have more than 500 AI systems working, helping to be more efficient, helping to have a better interaction with our customers, and also to create new business that is based on data and AI in a B2B context, yeah? Predicting what customers will leave you, optimizing your marketing campaigns, as we've seen before, Nest-backed activity. There are so many processes in a company, and each single process you can optimize and you can generate value. Yeah? Digital assistants to interact with your customers on your TV, on your premises, in an app. So it's really, really a big change where you change the customer relation, yeah? And then in the B2B part, what you see on the right side in this video is movements in a city. In this case, it's Barcelona, of movements of people moving to 3 different places of a city, yeah? This is all anonymized and aggregated data, but actually it is very valuable information for public administrations to plan, for instance, the public transport or to optimize traffic jams in cities. Yeah? So it's a huge opportunity on this. But it's not only business, yeah? and that is important for this technology. You can use it also to do good, yeah? And that's what I'm, in the recent years, I'm focusing more and more on. This technology is so powerful, all this data that we have in the world, in public data, open data, but also in private companies. There's a lot of data that can do a lot of things. What you see here in the movie on the right is mobility data in antennas in Mexico just before, during, and after an earthquake. Yeah? And what you see at the time when an earthquake strikes, you see the lights coming up, and that means those are the zones where there is more devastation. Yeah? People start communicating, I'm in problems, or I am safe. So this is a video of 2012, and it is when we realized, hey, data is not just an exhaust, it's really an asset that you can turn into value. What you saw before on the business side is a commercial proposition of this data, but this data can also solve many societal problems. Yeah? We will see that a bit later. Now, a few of examples you see that financial institutions, they have a lot of data about financial transactions. If you look at that at the national oh, this is all aggregated and anonymized data. Yeah? It's never about individual and personal data, but it's aggregated at a certain level of granularity, geography, and also in categories. But you can estimate the economic impact of a natural disaster very quickly if you look at financial data. Yeah? Satellite imaging can help you to estimate the GDP of countries by simply looking at the emission of light at night. Yeah? There's a very strong correlation. And then mobile phone data, if you anonymize it and aggregate it, also can give you lots of value for solving societal and planetary problems as defined in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Yeah? Here you see a very specific example of using this kind of data in the fight against COVID. Now, we all suffered COVID. There were huge restrictions of mobility in the different countries, actually in very different ways. And in Europe, there came 16 telecommunications operators came together and shared on a daily basis anonymized and aggregated mobility data with the European Commission, so they could build through the Joint Research Institute Center of the European Commission a dashboard where they could map cases and mobility patterns. Yeah? And especially with the enormous restrictions in mobility in the different countries, they wanted to know, if we restrict mobility, where is the impact on cases? What you see here is a very specific instance of the island of Sardinia, people moving inbound to Sardinia from areas with high cases of COVID. And what you see on the right-hand side is there is a peak of mobility, which is the blue thing, and then you see a peak of COVID cases just 2 weeks later. So instead of just waiting for when the COVID cases came to you, with this information you can actually prepare 2 weeks in advance. Okay, you can bet that in 2 weeks you have an outbreak, so you can prepare for that. No? Now, this system ran for 2 years. What we also saw, of course, for countries and ministries of health is very new, this kind of tools. Yeah? So they're not used to it to use it on a daily basis, but this is definitely something that we've learned during COVID. So we've seen huge opportunities on the business side, huge opportunities on the social side, even though still need much more investment, yeah? If you compare it to commercial opportunities, because that's where the investment go. There is a pending task that we have as societies to invest more in systems and in AI that solve large societal and environmental problems, yeah? Because there is no immediate economic return. That's something that we all have to work up, and that's also what I'm pushing for. Now, all those opportunities, but as you've seen already here at this conference, there is quite a lot of attention to the ethical or social impact of this technology. Yeah? It's very powerful. It has done things that we couldn't imagine, but there are also some risks. And those risks are not even intended risks. This is not companies wanting to do bad things. They just want to create great products. And what we've learned over the years that many of those risks you can actually avoid. Yeah? So very quick example, on the left side here, you see this camera with, like there's a rectangle on each face except for one face, yeah? And that happens to be a colored face. Now, today we all understand why that happens, yeah? Because you train your algorithm with data, and if your data is not representative for your target objective, your target audience, of course, the system doesn't learn. Yeah? So most of our mobile phones, they have face recognition to unlock, and all those algorithms are trained on mostly the same database, yeah? Which 80% has Caucasian people, yeah? So white people. Even your phone works worse, yeah, for a black woman than for a white male, but the differences are so small that this is still acceptable. Yeah? Those problems today, we understand them, and if you want, you can avoid them as much as possible. Yeah? Similar example on the translation, we all use automatic translation, yeah? And a few years ago, for such systems, all doctors were male, yeah? And all nurses were female. Now, that problem is now being tackled. Yeah? It's intervention in the algorithm. If you now ask Google, for instance, in Spanish, you ask you ask a nurse in Spanish, and then gives you the female version and the male version. Yeah? So they intervened in the algorithm to avoid bias. But if you let the algorithms do it by themselves, there is still bias. And in generative AI, that's also one of the important problems. Now, there are other aspects around carbon footprint of algorithms. Yeah? OpenAI, 10 months of training. That's why it's still until 2021. Tens of millions of energy bill to run the models, and that's just for one session. Yeah? So you have to be aware that this technology is very powerful, but bigger doesn't mean better always. Yeah? There are also downsides that we have to think about. And I've not even talked about privacy. Yeah? Privacy is always a problem. If you deal with personal data or anonymized data, you have to be careful in using this private personal data for AI. Now, those are all risks that if you are an organization and you work hard and you study, you can avoid those problems. You can avoid bias. You can try to do it. Yeah? You can be explainable. You can think about the footprint, and if you act on it, you can actually solve part of the problem. But there are bigger problems beyond organizations, which have to be solved by international organizations or governments. Yeah? Liability. Yeah? So you have AI systems that do a lot of things. We just saw the videos on generating content. Something goes wrong. Now, who is liable? Yeah? It's the programmer, it's the deployer, it's the provider, it's the owner. So all kinds of things that have to be settled. Yeah? Actually, in Europe, there is a new liability directive, and actually it says that if something happens, the duty to prove that the system was wrong is not with the customer, with the person, but is with the company. So it's inverted. Yeah? Things like inequality. Yeah? We've seen that this is for rich companies and it's for very rich countries. Yeah? So the divides between companies, within a country, in between countries, actually increasing with this technology. Yeah? And we've seen that. So the big tech is taking almost all the market for generative AI. So if nothing happens, then maybe we have to do something about it. How do you use AI in warfare, in defense, in military sector? It's all regulations that are written or being written today. They don't speak about military aspect. They speak about civil applications. Yeah? But there is a huge thing out there, geopolitical. It's very complex. How can you use this technology, or should you, or shouldn't you, in the military aspect? Education, the future of work, we've seen that. Estimations of displacement of people, but also creation of a huge amount of new jobs thanks to this technology. Yeah? Influence in our democracy, we've all noticed that. Brexit, yeah? The US elections with algorithms increasing the polarization in societies because they are so good at recommending what people like. Yeah? Many things that are out. Yeah? IP, so all those things, they have to be solved somewhere or another if this technology is continuing to be massively adopted. Now, what is happening in the world around this? Yeah? So basically, there are three approaches to this. One is the outright regulation. Yeah? So probably you've all heard about the European AI Act. Yeah? It's a risk-based thing. Some things are forbidden, some things are high risk, have to go through a process. Some things are limited risk, and the vast majority of applications have no risk. Yeah? China already has a regulation on generative AI, so you need to be transparent. Yeah? If you use this technology to generate content, it's compulsory to state that it's generated. Yeah? This to avoid the proliferation of deep fakes, where people cannot do that. Yeah? United States is starting to look at this. So that's one hand. Then there is this international recommendations. Yeah? There's the European Commission, there is the OECD, 42 countries, and there is UNESCO. Yeah? UNESCO has an AI ethics recommendation, which is actually adopted by 194 companies. Yeah? It's not 193, and also the United States, who recently joined again the UNESCO's in the United. So that is really very good. It's a very global thing, because we heard it before today, the difference between the Chinese approach, the European approach, the US approach. How do you bring it together? So what's closest to that is what UNESCO is trying to do, even though This is just a recommendation. You can say that you do it, but then if you don't do it, there is no sanction whatsoever. Yeah? And then there is self-regulation, where companies decide, we want to do this, and we set up some principles. Yeah? Now, these are the principles that Telefonica decided in 2008 already. All the use of artificial intelligence that we do should be fair, so should not discriminate, should not have this bias, should be transparent and explainable when the use case does require it. It's not the same doing AI in healthcare versus doing a recommendation of a video or a song. Yeah? So the impact on people's life if something goes wrong is completely different. So transparency and explainability is different in different cases. Human-centric, the right level of autonomy for the use case, for the system, and of course privacy and security. And very important, across the value chain, yeah? Because the AI value chain is very complex. Providers, big providers, we saw it. Open source, joint ventures, partners, how does this all fit together? Yeah? Now, what we've done in Telefonica is using a method that we call responsible AI by design, which basically consists of awareness, training employees, have a questionnaire, a system where you evaluate step by step all the principles and the risk, and then have a governance model. What does it mean? Who's responsible for what are functions? Yeah? And then escalation level. And then finally, we identified 3 new roles to make this happen in an organization. The first is what we call a responsible AI champion. Yeah? You've all heard in privacy, it's the DPO, Data Protection Officer. We believe something similar is needed for AI. It's the person to go in any business unit that uses, sells, or builds AI, where the teams can go to in terms of questions about the ethical impact of AI. Yeah? We have an AI ethics committee where we escalate problems detected on the floor, where they decide only on ethical aspects. Should we use gender in this model? Yes or no? Are we transparent enough? So it's debating those things within the company. And then finally, we created a small AI office that pushes all these changes through the organization, because this is something very new, and if you just let it happen in the organization, it won't happen. Yeah? Now finally, if you want to go through this whole process from creating value from data up to taking all the value in AI, you need to go through a journey, yeah? Which is a complex journey. And here you see some examples of Telefonica, which took us more than 10 years to do that. Yeah? Of course, now we know much more, and if you start now, you can do it maybe 4 or 5 years, but still a very complex thing. Yeah? And last slide, and then I'll finish. I wrote down all those lessons I learned from large organizations. If you want to go through this transformation, turning data from an exhaust into a strategic asset, and finally creating value. And I wrote it up in the book, and which you can look at if you take a picture of the QR code. Thank you very much.
Right, we have 2.5 minutes for Q&A, so who would like to go first? Any volunteers maybe in the back? Oh yeah, just over there.
Hi, just in the front here, sorry. Thank you for such a good presentation. Just a quick question about ChatGPT-based solutions in risk, especially when we look at sensitive data like ESGs. Do you have any opinions about that?
ChatGPT, no, I don't understand the question, sorry.
The question is basically there's a lot of tools that are built on ChatGPT. For example, well, there are quite a few of them, I won't name them of course, but the issue is when you're processing sensitive documents like ESG declarations, disclosures, what's the investment appetite for that? What's some components to look out for in the future?
Well, of course, if you use ChatGPT, the public one, you have to be very careful with what you upload, yeah, and what you use it for, because you're disclosing confidential information. But I would say ESG information is actually information that you want to disclose. Yeah? So that's not a problem, but you have to be very careful if you use public ChatGPT for disclosing information.
Brilliant. One more question, I saw someone there, yeah.
Can I? Does it? Okay. So how difficult is it for a large enterprise like Telefonica to adopt the change management to really have data-driven or AI-driven decisions?
It is difficult, yeah. It takes years, and I mean, it was in the beginning. It was also very a technological issue, but I mean, AI technology, apart from generative AI, is quite mature. So it's really a cultural transition and a people thing, rather than a technological thing. It's very important to show positive examples to the organization, and also to let, let's say, top management speak about it.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm afraid we're out of time, but ladies and gentlemen, please thank our speaker. Thank you.